I will ask you to mute yourself during the session unless our guest today asks you to come and join and talk. You can always share your thoughts on the chat. And let's start now. So very pleased to introduce you to Helena Kim. Helena is a psychologist, doctor, coaching. She taught a lot in different places, including the Judge Business School here in Cambridge. And today we're going to talk about something that I hope you all like dancing, because can we dance together? Can we make sure that our co-founders can navigate co-founder leadership and communication? This is the theme for today. It's applying to every startups at every stage. It's probably applying to any times we have two people together in one room. So Helena, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to fiddle with the technology now and share my screen. For some reason, okay, it's up and good. Okay, is my chat box on the screen?
No.
Okay,
it's perfect.
All right. Okay, let's get started. It is 12:04 my time, or 12:05. The clock just turned to 12:05. Good afternoon, and welcome to this masterclass. I am really excited to be here because I, first of all, love dancing, and second, I see the world through the lens of relationships, and there is a correlation between the two. Researching and working with startup co-founders is not only a professional joy or interest of mine, it's also a personal investment for me, because my husband, who is a professor here at the University of Cambridge, has his own, and his co-founders, they have their own biotech company. So when they started their business, I ran around and did a lot of research to make sure that the co-foundership, and I think that's a word I'd like to think I coined, co-foundership is going to be not only successful, but everyone is going to be happy. Again, as a coaching psychologist, as Sylvie said, what I do is that I work in the corporate setting where I combine psychology and leadership coaching. And recently, I've had a lot of interest from people who are starting, because we're in Cambridge, where it's Silicon Fen. There's a huge biotech and technology startup incubation and acceleration going on, as we know, especially through Alia. And there is the correlation, the relationship is like a dance. And the reason I'm bringing the ballet dancers up on screen is because this is kind of dance that everybody in this room, you left your old company because you, as much as you love the elegance of dancing together in the same formation and doing the same thing with like everybody else, one of the reasons you left was because you wanted to do something that was unique, different, and that stood out, that was outstanding. So that you are getting away from the idea of being in formation with the dancers and other dancers. As much as you love seeing the other dancers, you are more interested in starting your own. And when you start your own business, this is actually how you feel, isn't it? Very similar, where you realize you need 7 arms, 7 heads, 3 hearts, and you have to be in 4 places at once, and you wish you had 32 hours to a day. Okay, that's being modest. You wish you had 48 hours to a day. And so what happens is then you realize what really would make logical sense and emotional sense is for you to get a partner. And co-foundership is probably the most important aspect as you start this business, because most investors they favor companies that have co-founders. We know this. But within the co-foundership, there's dancing together with somebody, like the people who are dancing as a couple, one person leads. And sometimes that doesn't go as well because you both want to lead. Unless you have an understanding that the other person is a silent partner, it's one of the really dynamic things that every co-founding startups have, that the idea of power and influence. And those are things that we're going to talk about today, where you're able to now understand the background as to what is behind the social intelligence and co-foundership. And I'm using, and I don't know, Sylvia, I think I'm going to coin this one, maybe even copyright it, because what I'm talking about when I say co-foundership, what I'm talking about is relationship in co-founders. And it really is about learning how. So it's not a ballet dance. It's not a troupe that you dance, everybody having the same steps. And it's not the one person dancing with one steps that they only know. And it's not even the two dance of the cha-cha or the ballroom dancing, because you want to be able to lead together. So the way I see the dance that co-founders in businesses is, I see them as it's more grit, and it's more wild, and it's freestyle. It's freestyle and street dancing, like the picture that we have here. And if you know about street dancing or freestyle dancing, everybody gets a turn being in the front. And everybody has their own step, but they share the same music. And they have to be synchronized. The steps have to be synchronized. So today, I'm hoping what you will get out of today is, I wish I could dance for you, but I think that'll take longer, nor will it be as elegant as what you see on the screen. But what you're going to walk away with is material that I extracted from a half-day course that I do for co-founders, for couples. And you say couples? Yes, because co-founders, if you have two of them, it's like being a couplehood without the physical intimacy and romance, because you have the intricacies and the difficulties and the splendor of being in a couple without that kind of intimacy or romance. So I hope that you will be able to take away some self-coaching tools that you can use on your own, where you don't need me to be there, where you can retrain yourself and retrain each other so you can work well together. Okay, let's get started. Let's start with the basics here. Let's look at the definition. What does social intelligence in action? This is all about action. You need to do something about. When you have intelligence, it's no use if you're not using it. So it really, the definition is connection and synchronicity with you and your co-founder or co-founders, where everyone's needs matter. And this is I underlined everyone's needs, because that's going to be the crux of what we're going to be talking about. And also included in the social intelligence action is your motivation and skills, developing the skills. And like dancing, you could learn the steps to meet these needs. You are, everybody, you are the star of your own story. And this is true for everybody on earth. You are the star of your own story. The difference is when you co-found or you start a company with somebody, the question you have to ask is, how would you like to share that spotlight? And how would you like to create a joint story? So throughout this session, I'll be asking a lot of questions, and I invite you to think about them, jot some stuff down, because who knows, I may bump into you and I may ask you. Yeah. When I think about especially co-founding, I was watching this movie or a series of movies, Fast and Furious. I think a lot of you may know about the car show, Rock'em and Sock'em. I was raised with two older brothers, so I love these really thrillers and gritty shows. And there's Dwayne Johnson, who is this big, burly, bald guy. And then there's Vin Diesel, who's also a big, burly, bald guy. And they are in the movie together. And I always wonder, how do they share their spotlight? Because they're somewhat similar, but they're somewhat different. but they both take up a lot of spotlight. So this is something you can think about, is how would you like to share the spotlight in this joint story with your co-founders or founder? When I say communication is absolutely essential in all relationships, yeah, no duh. That is, everyone knows that. You don't have to be a psychologist or a relationship expert to know that. Communication is absolutely essential in all and every kind of relationships, whether it's with your partner in business, partner in life, or with your daughter, with your son, with your neighbor, or whatever, any kind of, if you have more than one person, that communication becomes really, really essential. Now we're going away from this self, personal development, where communication to self is just as important, but today we're going to focus on the communication between two or more people. And all communication is about needs. You're going, what does that mean? Yeah, stay with me. All communication is about needs. Look at how people communicate with you and what they communicate. It's most of the, in all cases, it's because there's a need that they need to fulfill. That's the bigger version of where we're going. We're going to narrow that down with each slide. Okay. Now, the next statement is going to be also very obvious. Needs are universal. Everybody has them. This is what we all have in common. And so the next line is going to be the most important part that people tend to forget. You and you alone, you are responsible for meeting your own needs. We get into trouble, we get into conflict when we expect other people to meet our own needs, our own needs. So the expectation that we have, that we rely on other people to do that for us, that gets complicated because we got expectations and outcome. And most of the time for us, it can be disappointing and there's no agency. So we start with that premise. All communication is about needs, and you are responsible for meeting your own needs. What are the needs that she's harping about? What are the needs? I have simplified one of my talents, one of my power skills, or my superpower is that I can extrapolate. I can extrapolate books into 2 slides or even one. In this one, I have extrapolated about 150 books and about 200 studies into 1 slide. And this is something that I've copyrighted for my next book. And what I looked at was why people leave jobs, why people are successful in their marriages, why they get divorced. I've even interviewed many divorced lawyers, and I've also interviewed a lot of successful co-founders or co-leaders or co-parents and a lot of successful people. What do you believe? Why do people leave their jobs? Why are they so unhappy? What makes them unhappy? So I started from that end. So what is it? People leave their jobs and partners because some of 1, 2, or 3, or 6 of their needs are not being met. And there's conflict between you and your partner. If there's any conflict, that's a reflection. It's a giveaway. It's a symptom that someone's needs are not being met. So the 3 that I have on board already: connect, contribute, and collaborate. These are relationship and partnership needs. How are you connecting? How are you contributing to each other? And how are you collaborating as 2 individuals? And how are you putting that together? So connect, the 3 C's, they are the 3 partnership needs. You need to be able to connect, you need to be able to give, and you need to be able to collaborate with each other. Okay, that's really simple, isn't it? But it's more complicated than you think, because it then intertwines with your personal needs. The first personal needs is your sense of significance. Everybody in any relationship needs to be seen and to be heard. And this is where you feel valued, that you are validated, you are recognized, you're important. And you know what? In some situations, you're rewarded with money, or that, you know, how much impact are you making into this organization or into this partnership? So are you respected? So everybody, you and the other person or people on your team, they have the need to be heard and they have the need to be seen. If they are not, they are going to be unhappy. So let's look at the second personal need that's universal, is congruence. We all have the primitive need to belong and to be a member of something, because that's where we get our sense of our security, where we learn how to trust. This is where you realize, is this partnership, is this right? Is this good? And these are two different questions. And are your roles that you have, the expertise that you have, are they compatible? Are they supplementary? Or do they really meld well together? And this is where you start to feel confident about your sense of your membership, because you have shared values. You're going to the same destination. You know what you want, or is that clear? Do you know that your partner or your co-founder, does he or she have the same goals? And more importantly, do they have the same understanding of how you're going to get there? So if you have that sense of significance and if you have sense of congruence, we can that's where we can start to measure how connected are you. And are you now then ready to collaborate and contribute? And the third need comes into play. This is where everybody in this room has the need to develop and to grow, because boredom for you guys, for you all in this room, boredom is probably the worst sin that you could imagine. So this is a place, this partnership or the startup, it has to create, or it has to have something that you can be creative in. You have to be free, feel free to make mistakes and learn. And also, is this a place where you could actually actualize your vision? And the most important bit for the partnership or any kind of startup is, are you having fun? Are you dancing? And are you dancing hard? So for you to think about this, think of, as you look at your co-partnership and your co-foundership, are you meeting these needs? Do you feel heard? Do you feel significant? Are you growing? Is this exciting? Is this something that you know that you wake up every morning thinking about? And for at the startups, for any kind of startup, whichever size it is, this is something that you need to actually sweat. You have to tear, and you have to eat and dream and basically be the startup. That obsession is really important, because that enthusiasm is going to be where all the sense of significance, because you have given up something to do this. So it better be worth it. It has to be significant for you to be worth being here, and especially with somebody else. Yeah, we just an interesting thing on the side is, when we find that people cheat on relationships, we find that their personal needs are not, one of these needs are not being met. And we also find that people, even when one of these needs are not being met, they are unhappy. And we also find this with people with jobs. So we find that they have to, all three of these needs, the personal needs, have to be met.
What the groundwork had started while doing PhD exams. So I've started an institution wherein we give some coaching for.
Excuse me, I think there's somebody with their mic on. Okay. We also have then the question is the perpetual cheaters, people who cheat all the time. Yeah, we find that they are too getting their needs met. They have the need for congruence because they are cheaters, so they have to do things that cheaters do. So anyway, that's just an interesting on the side for people who want to understand, why do people cheat? At the end of the day, we look at people who are unhappy. We have to look at what are the needs out of the 6 that are not being met, that is taking them somewhere else. Again, now needs are universal. They are also connected to your emotions. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in, where the half of the on the right side, when your needs are met, like for instance, my husband's startup, what I want, okay, again, what I want is like, I want in the next quarter, he's going to get the investment of 10 million. And that's what I want. That's what they want. This is what everybody wants. But for me, what I need is, with that money, that sense of when it's in our bank, what I need is security. What I need is financial security. What I want is financial freedom to make different choices, to expand my business. And also what I need is that sense of fiscal security because we just bought a big house and we have to renovate. So that's the need. The security is a need. Want is the money. So I hope you guys are able to distinguish between your want and your need. And sometimes they will overlap, and that's all right. So look at the right side of your screen. When your needs are met in your co-foundership or in your business, look at all the amazing things that you are looking forward to feeling assured, engaged, ecstatic. You feel empowered because you're your own boss. You're feeling self-confident because you're actually creating something, and you're also making an impact and making a difference. You are an eco-warrior. You are caring, and you're also really content because you're actually congruent. You're doing something that meets your values. Look at the left side. Look at the feelings and the descriptors of when your needs are not being met. That you're feeling anxious, you're feeling unhappy, you're feeling embarrassed, you're feeling startled and overwhelmed and depressed. So think about your needs and your feelings and how they're intertwined with each other. Yeah. And so sometimes it's chicken or the egg. Sometimes it's the needs that being met that leads to the happiness or the joy or the positivity. Really remember the before you feel anything, before that happens, before your emotions, what happens is there's a story that you tell yourself. These are your thoughts and the words that you use that creates these feelings. And these feelings then, and the emotions, then they dictate your behavior. So your emotions dictate your motion. So keep that in mind. And also be careful how you tell your story, because if it's a negative story, you may feel negative and you may make negative decisions and choices, and vice versa. So you're telling a positive story, you understand it that way, you feel positive and good and trusting, and you're feeling excited, then you make exciting choices. So there's a huge impact in the stories that you tell yourself and you create and the feelings that you have. So I hope this is going to be useful for you to actually tap into how are you feeling and what needs are not being met that you may be feeling one side or the other. Let's go to the basics now. So we know what happens emotionally and psychologically. Let's look at the physiology. When you and your colleagues are sitting down and making decisions, and I know you guys are really busy. Bless you. You're really busy. One of the first things you need to do is make sure you understand your physiology. If your brain is not hydrated enough, you are going to have that mental fatigue. You're going to have really impaired problem-solving methods. You're going to have mood swings, irritability, and you're not going to think properly. So even just that, having that extra water, maybe this is a good time for me to rehydrate, and I hope everybody else is taking a quick break here. So make sure you're taking care of yourself in that way. And I'm not talking about coffee or alcohol, because those dehydrate your brain. Second, another thing in the brain, in the neuroscience, is you need to really be important to look at what are you doing physically. Look at the brain on the left side that's depressed. Brain that's not depressed has a lot of activities. Look on the right box. You have the left brain that is sitting very quietly, and this is not meditation. This is basically someone who's just sitting and vegging and maybe watching TV. On the right side is someone who has walked, not worked out at the gym or done anything strenuous, but walked for 20 minutes. Your brain activity is different. When your brain activity is different, your communication with your co-founder will be different because your mood will be different. So think about that, because we also find that if you're in a foul mood, if you're really upset, it takes 18 to 20 minutes for the mood to change in your brain. And so maybe there's something to be said about taking a walk for 20 minutes. So think about it, your brain, your physiology, it has a huge impact on how you relate. Now let's go back and let's move to what we know about your co-founder development. There is a cycle, there's stages that it goes through. There are 4 stages. The forming is when you get to, remember when you all got together, you got really excited, there's the huge enthusiasm, that's all you could talk about. And that's the honeymoon stage where you're also sort of figuring out how are we going to get along? You know, I need to get the lay of the land. Does he like me? Does she like me? Are we going to work together? You know, this is really exciting. And during this time is really, really crucial. Your task, this is what you do during this time, is that you learn to teach the other person how to work with you. For instance, you say, you know what, I don't work really well when in the morning. I work really best between 4 and 7 o'clock in the evening. These are just really essential things. Like, for instance, you know what, I like to be asked. I don't like to be told. So there are different ways of your style, and we're going to cover that in 3 slides, of what kind of style that you want to teach the other person. What's the best way to get the best out of me? So this is a time when you get to know each other, that you start to tell each other and teach and guide each other about your characteristics and your preferences and your concerns. Now, as you develop this relationship, you will hit, and we hope you do, because the storming stage is necessary for all relationships. This is where things you learn the differences, conflict. This is also when one of you or 2 of you will start to fluff up your feathers to see who has more power, who has more influence. This is where you try to try stuff out that may be disagreeable. It may not be something that is as smooth or nice as it was in the forming stage. It's necessary and it's normal for you to have this conflict. And I know, knowing about the Indian culture, because I'm married to an Indian man, and I'm aware of the Indian family dynamics and also the Asian culture, we will do everything possible to avoid conflict. And that's something that you may need to change. And I think a lot of the startup founders are different kinds of people. You are more open to trying out new things and standing out and being a co-founding variable. So I think you may need to, at this point, be really clear with your partner and your co-founder how you want to work and how you also manage stress, or how you manage storming or the conflict. That's where you figure out, between storming and norming, is how you figure out the rules between the 2 of you, the do's and don'ts. And during this time, the trust is developed. Trust is not developed in the forming stage like everybody thinks it does. It's after you've gone through the storming stage, you have your little scabs and your war wounds, and then you're able to, at that point, trust. You know, if we can make it through that, we can make it through anything. During this time, it's really important that you support each other and you give feedback. That really worked out well for me, or that didn't work out, or I'm not sure if that's the way I want to continue, or what have you. The performing stage is going to be where you are both on the same page and you are going in the same direction. And this is where you can start to then empower each other. You think you empower each other in the beginning. That's not true, because that's too early. It's really empowering when that happens during the performing stage. And this does not happen one after the other. It happens after you've had a conflict. You have to go back to the forming stage for some people. After you had a huge pitch and you had your first quarter and you got a lot of money, you may need to start over because someone else is coming on board. Every time there's a membership change, you may need to go back to the forming stage. So generally speaking, this is how a lot of teams and groups work, and also how it works with co-founders, because it is a relationship. And think of it when some people, when you're dating or when you've met your wife or your husband in the beginning, how you're really nice to each other, and then you start to think of like, oh, I don't like the way he does or the way she does things and what have you. But you start to figure out by talking to each other and figuring out the norms that you're able to work together. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why people get married. Even there's a 50% chance of divorce. People really believe that this process of performing and working together. And now I'm going to ask a question for people. If you can chime in the chat box. Tell me how in your family, growing up, in your family, how did your family deal with conflict? Growing up, How did your family deal with conflict? Did they not? Did dad decide? Did mom decide? I am using it to everybody. Yeah. Okay. Dad always had the last word. Okay, good. Endless discussion. Okay. Anyone else?
Don't be shy.
Yeah, with mutual discussion. Good. Argue. Yes, yes. Argue is, They used to sit together and discuss about the issues. Very good. Very civilized. Yes. Right. What else? When mom and dad, or even when mom and dad argued, okay, how did you take it? Shouting it, yeah, that's one way of being expressive and getting it out. And you know what? Some people, that is cathartic. That decision was final. Good. Okay. So in a patriarchal family, father has the final decision. Okay. Okay, we listen to each other and discuss about solutions. Very good. You communicate. Very good. Yeah. Excellent. Right? Anyone in the room, and okay, can we get that's, yeah, anyone in the room where there was people just didn't talk, they go into silence. It's you when you're calm, not to react impatiently, you want to understand, listen to each other, understand. Wow, everyone's coming from amazing families where they're able to listen to each other. And so I hope this is true. This is true because how your family, how they dealt with conflict and tension is generally, yes, good. Okay. Yes, I do. Stop talking and wait and listen. So think about how you will manage conflict and tension between your co-foundership or in your team or in your business is going to be, it's really when stress gets really high, what we find is that people regress to what they know and how they were trained, quote unquote, conditioned in the family. So it's a very interesting way that there's a recapitulation of using those tools in the current situation when we look back to our relationship is like two wheels of a carriage. One is adjustment and the other is contentment. Oh my God, I think we should put that on a poster. That's fantastic, Kenan. Thank you. Kenan, so this is where now we know shout, silence, discussion, shout, settle. Yeah, so the people have different ways. So these are things that you need to early on talk about in the forming stage of this is how we deal with conflict. So that's a giveaway to how when you can anticipate when you guys are in conflict and disagreement of what the rules can be used. Very important, and figure out what works for both of you, because all the methods that you use is going to be, you have to decide between the two of you what norms and what rules work for you. There isn't a one size fits all. Like for instance, shout, silence, discussion, shout, settle may not work for everybody, but it may work for some people. Okay, so let's look at what awareness we need. So one of the things that for you to be able to teach other people how to work with you, teach other people and guide other people to really get the best out of you is learning what your preference and your working style is. One is that you could be a driver, someone who is really just really go-getter, and you get things done, and you are demanding, and you implement things, you complete all the things that's out there. And then you go down to, let's say, someone who's expressive, where this person is interested in coordinating, expressing, getting people engaged. And sometimes a person can be really lofty and very much of a dreamer. We see a lot of startup founders who fall into these two categories. Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes the drivers and the expressive, they butt heads because the expressive is very kumbaya, and they want to get everyone engaged, and they're dreamers and they can talk a lot about what they want to do. But the driver says, okay, what do we need to do? What are the tasks? How do we need to get things done? Yeah, and then the amiable and the blue. These are the people where they all want to get along. They want to get along with everybody. So someone who's amiable is like, I want to get it nice. I really want everyone to get along because I'm really people oriented. And then that drives the driver nuts, because you're thinking like, wait, we don't have time for this kumbaya. We need to get things done. And then someone who says, you know what, we can't go this fast because we have to get the things right. Look at the product. Look at the code. It's not right. So the analyticals come in, and they're the ones who will they will be the ones who monitor what is right. So think about, we have all four of these, but some of us are stronger in one or the other. And that's what gets us into trouble sometimes, because some of us are people oriented. I'm very people oriented, but I'm also very task oriented at the same time. So I'm pretty versatile. But for some of you, you are analytical, you are techie, you're a scientist, and you want things to be just right. And the driver says, you know what, we don't have time for that. We need to get going. And the expressive person says, oh, you know, I want all of us to really be able to package this in a way that's palatable for everybody. The person in the amiable says, but you know, can we all just get along? Can we have a coffee? Now, the reason I tell you this is because as you know more about yourself and how you like to work, you need to understand how you come across to other people. Even though you see yourself one way, other people will see you and experience you differently. So for instance, someone who is analytical, someone who's scientific, who's detail-oriented, we love you because you are precise and you are logical and you're analytical. And you know what, we rely on you to make sure that everything's packaged in the way that needs to be presented. And then the people who are energetic down here, who's expressive and says, you know what, I'm open, I'm optimistic, we can do this, we can do that. And the analytical was like, you know what, that's too lofty. That's just too, it's not clean, it's not organized. So look at the personality differences or the preference difference between the ones that are across from each other. And these are all amazing traits that we have. Be clear about how you are and how you present yourself, but look at how other people may see you. They may misunderstand you. So someone who is really amiable and they want everyone to get along, and they're the ones who actually bring people together to and in a lovely way. They're always the ones which I love everyone. I can always tell someone, they have a box of chocolate or something for everyone. They share everything. They bring muffins and cupcakes to get-togethers and meetings and what have you. Some of the people you might be, the amiable people may be misunderstood, that they take longer to get things done because they're more conscientious about how it's going to look to everybody else. Or the people who are analytical, you may be misunderstood as somebody who is too much of a perfectionist. And also you might be emotional, which is kind of contradictory, but that emotional means that you become so attached to your work that you may not be, you may feel possessive about the work that you put out there. So understand how you are, and also understand how you may come across other people, so then you're able to see yourself in their eyes. Okay? I think I got 9 minutes. Okay, we're doing okay. Now let's move on to something that's related to that, is social intelligence in a nutshell. Definition is not that complicated. Okay, now again, my job is to define some things in a nutshell for everybody. This is a definition from like 456 pages. Yeah. Social emotional intelligence is really simple. It's awareness and management of yourself and others. Simple. It's simple, but it's not easy, because it requires for you to navigate not just you, but others, in the way you not just getting along with them, but being able to handle conflict while you're in that conflict. So when we have a preference, we would really love you to understand clear boundaries about who you are, what makes you tick, what concerns you, how you feel about things. If you have that, the rest comes a bit easier. So then you're able to understand other people. If you have self-awareness, it's a lot easier for you to understand other people, not because you see them through your eyes, but you understand yourself and you're able to put a boundary on it and say, that's my issue. Then you're able to step out and say, you know what, okay, that's different from me. And being able to be aware of that. And then putting that together is what we call social intelligence. One of the things that we teach our executives is teaching them how to have a balcony view. What that is that you're able to have as you're in the drama of being in that relationship, you're able to see a neutral balcony view from that perspective. And that's what we call meta communication or meta process in communication speak. And that's the hardest one so far that I think that a lot of people have difficulty. But it becomes a lot easier as you ask more coaching questions. These are coaching questions we're not going to go over all at once, but we are going to go. I'm going to give this slides to you so that you can use that for you to increase your self-awareness so you're able to teach other people or teach yourself who you are. What do you want? What do you need? What are your thoughts and how do you react to things? And the reason you have this is because then you know what's your stuff and your emotions and your opinions and that's separate from everybody else. Then go over to social awareness, being able to read and understand them without you getting in the way. So that's the emotional intelligence we're looking for, is that you're not projecting your stuff onto other people. Just because I like chicken doesn't necessarily mean everybody likes chicken. Yeah, just because just because I don't like peanut butter doesn't necessarily mean other people don't either. So looking at being able to really clarify what's your stuff and what's their stuff. So I'm going to leave you with this because we're running out of time. Go ahead and read these questions. Well, I am going to say something about judgmental. One thing that I see that everyone in any kind of relationship with your co-founder is when you start to judge the other person, where you start to predict and say, oh my gosh, she's going to say something silly. It's like, oh, there he goes again. I can't believe he's saying that. It's like, oh, I don't agree. This is a bad idea. So when you make that kind of judgment, it's really difficult for you to be open to what they're saying and how they're going. And because you know what, the thing is, they know that you're thinking that. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit when I give you more tips. Okay. Let's go straight to the reason a lot of people get into trouble in communication is because they're not really clear about what they're feeling, but more importantly, they're not sometimes clear about to what degree they're feeling. So for people who are the drama queens, they function way up there on top. So when they're afraid, they're terrified. But when in actuality, they're a bit nervous. So think about where you function. Where is your comfort zone when you're feeling the positive versus the others? Growing up, were you allowed to express your rage? Like a lot of people, you say, your father made the decision. They had more authority in being able to discuss conflict and what have you. But as a child growing up, were you allowed? As a teenager, as growing up, were you allowed to express how upset you were, or were you allowed to express your disappointment or your shame and the negative feelings? Think about that. So these are the reason it's important for you to know your emotions is because you need to be able to manage them and not be managed by them. Okay, and this is just the degree of feelings. I'm going to show you something that's a bit more complicated here. We're looking at if you're telling me that you're sad, if you're telling me that you're angry, it's very difficult for us to do something about that. But if you're able to really pinpoint on the outside of the circle, if you're feeling sad because you're feeling ignored, we can do something about that. If you're feeling lonely because you feel isolated, we can actually do something about that. So on the outside, if you're able to pinpoint what that and identify what that is, it's easier for you to actually remedy and actually take action to resolve. But if you say, I am sad, That's a harder one to deal with. Okay, so you're moving on to this simple, the quick tips. I'm going to go straight to the funny ones are here. Okay, know the difference between self-command and consult. When you are commanding, in your head, you think you're consulting other people, but in your heart, be careful. In your heart, you might want to command. You be a self-command. It's what you want, and you just wanted them to agree with you. So be careful between your head and your heart and what you want. When you're having a discussion with your co-founder, what story are you bringing in? So, and also avoid telling your story or telling your side of the story or your point or your opinion, and then you turn around and say, "What do you think?" Because that's not what you're really asking. Sometimes what you really mean is, agree with me. Yeah, so be really specific about what feedback you need from them instead of saying, what do you think? I had one executive who I worked with, and he kept saying every time he says something, he wants consultation with other people and say, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking, who's going to agree with you? You're the boss. Okay. Also be cautious. When you say we need to do something or we got to do something, using the we, when you mean not me, or when you really mean will you. So for instance, if you need to make a lot of cold calls, yeah, we need to make a lot of cold calls. That there's no we there, and what you're really, it's a be really clear in your communication. When we, is that we or you or me? Okay. The next set is going to be really important because we're looking at how everybody enters a dialogue with their own agenda, their judgments, theories, and their experiences. Everyone comes with their whole self. Yeah. And one of the questions that you might want to start to ask is, what do I need? What do I want from me? And that has to be balanced out with, what do I need for them? So this is where your contribution comes in. Where you're thinking about them, not what do I need from them, because that's not coming from the heart. What you're saying is, what do I want for them? What do they need? And the third question is, in our conversation, in our dialogue, when what we're doing, what do we need for each other in this relationship? So again, we come back to a full circle about understanding each other's needs, because you may have different needs than your co-partner or your co-founder. And that has to be really discussed openly in ways, not just in the way, what do you want, what do you need, but where are we going? Yeah. And when you're sitting down and setting a goal or planning a project or events, look at the question, and you do a contrast. Don't just talk about what we need to do, the to-do list that we all do, right, to reach our goal. The most important question is, what we don't want. Okay, what do we need and what don't we want? Okay, what we don't want is, so you can say we want people to participate, we want people to be more involved, but what we don't want is when we are overworked. We don't make sure that we don't so make sure when you're making a plan or setting between the two of you, make sure you put what we don't want, because if you get carried away with what you want or what you need, you're going to just end up with half the story. It has to be completed with what the consequences of what you don't want. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this because we're coming to a. Can I do one more thing, Sylvie?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
you
good.
You have until another 10 minutes, but it depends
Oh,
on.
yay! Okay, good. So I think one of the things that what we for people who people with anger issues, I don't want to say anger issues, people who are passionate about discussing and passionate, and when they get really frustrated, I want us to really understand and accept and cherish. And for me, anger is my favorite emotion, because it is an underdog, it is misunderstood. When someone is angry, it's because there are things underneath that anger that keeps them from being true or being confident or being honest, because they feel misunderstood or they're afraid. So people who are, when you see someone who lose their temper or who's upset, because a lot of us avoid conflict because we don't want to upset the other person. So make sure when you see somebody who's angry, or make sure you understand that when someone is upset and you're in a conflict, understand it comes from a place where they feel small, where they feel afraid, they feel embarrassed. We see this with a lot with, I think, with men in particular, when they feel small, when they feel, and this is true for women as well, but when they feel embarrassed. We see a lot of this when people get into fights, like bar fights in particular, you know, alcohol's involved, but when they feel disrespected, when they feel disappointed, when they feel there's a sense of injustice or they feel unimportant. That's where anger, the roots of anger come from all that. So if you understand, when you see somebody who's upset or angry or in conflict, then you're able to now re-understand that person instead of being afraid of them or making a judgment about them. And it goes the same for you. If you're experiencing that frustration, and it's because there's something that is going on the inside that's making you feel smaller than you want to feel, because it's incongruent with who you are. Okay. One thing about empathy. I know a lot of people think, I understand you. I understand you. I've been in your shoes. I understand exactly what you're talking about. And so be careful when you assume that you understand somebody because you've experienced something they did. So the myth about walking in someone else's shoes is that a lot of us are not really understanding them for who they are. We are understanding them from who we are. So we are projecting our feelings and what I experienced. So, you know, I've been to Paris. So when my friend told me that she's going to Paris, like I know exactly how she feels, but it's not the same, because her Paris trip is different from mine. Even simple things like that. So if someone is upset or someone is not managing something, please do not assume because you've experienced it, so you understand them. That you have to be really careful about that, because empathy, true understanding is understanding the other person as they experience it, not the way you experienced it, or not the way you want them to experience it. So my general rule for walking in someone else's shoes is literally and figuratively, it is unhygienic. So be careful, because think about it. Yeah, will you really understand how it feels to be in their shoes? For you, the assignment is to improve your co-foundership. What do you need? And these are 3 really powerful coaching questions. What do you need to keep doing? Because you're already doing something wonderful. Yeah, take a few minutes right now to, if you can take a couple of minutes to think about, what do you need to keep doing? And what do you need to now start doing? Something that's new that will be helpful for you in the way you may now start to ask, what do they need? Really, and what do I need that could be different? It's not just that everybody wants to be successful and make a lot of money. It isn't. And also, most importantly, what do you need to stop doing between the two of you so you could have this amazing partnership, this amazing co-foundership? Because at the end of the day, I think people forget when you start your business that people think it's all about the success. And it's my job and my responsibility to remind and to teach people that it is the success, but it's also the happiness that's necessary. Because at the end of the day, people, life is not that complicated. Life is about love and work. And with work, There is friends, family, your romantic relationship, yourself, your hobbies, all the things that give you joy that's outside of work. And then there's work, and we know what that is. But people think that it's like we need to be successful. This is why people want that perfect match with the other person. But sometimes that perfect match doesn't necessarily mean that successful match doesn't necessarily mean that it's a happy match. So please focus, and I'm inviting you to think about love and work being successful and happy in both of these. And with that, I close my session with everybody, and I go forth, be successful, and be happy in your co-foundership. And thank you for everybody being an eco warrior. So I'm going to stop here, Sylvie. If we have any questions.
Yes. Wow, thanks. Thank you very much, Helena. A great session. I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you have taken at least 3 points to apply with your co-founder. Thank you very much, Helena. Very, very useful. I've also put a feedback form on the chat, so please feel free to fill it. All the slides, and the recording will be shared with you. I mean, use the tools, come back to us, and tell Helena that it has worked.
Oh, please, I would love that feedback. Yes, please, any of the slides, you can use them. And hopefully it will be, these slides are made so you can take them apart and then take them with you and create a discussion with your co-founders. Because you know what? Yeah, I think the co-foundership is an amazing relationship. Because sometimes for you guys, you spend more time with your co-founder than you do with your own wife or husband. So so I hope you will be happy and successful in where you guys are going. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.